All right, welcome to Detroit Pistons and some other stuff from a leftist perspective with your host, Andrew Brewster. That's me. All right, so I've had this idea for a while. I love the Detroit Pistons, and I also love some other stuff. So I wanted to make some type of a format where I can talk about that. And normally I just tweet about the Pistons and a lot of the other stuff I like. I do cover Michigan State football and basketball professionally. Spartans Wire, part of the USA Today Sports Network, but I have always used the Pistons to be like my fun sports outlet. I enjoy being a fan of the Pistons. I don't ever want it to be work, so this is more like an outlet just for me to blow off steam instead of just like frantically tweeting while I'm having anxiety attacks during the games, which game five of the last one, I was literally standing up and like my hands were shaking during the game because I'm such a freaking nut about the Pistons. And that was crazy. But yeah, so I wanted to do this and I'm just going to try it out and see how I like it. And this is it. So, yeah, I'm going to cover a couple different topics, Pistons, and then some other stuff from the leftist perspective. You guys get it. Um, Honestly, it's just going to be for me, and I'll post it on YouTube. I'll put it on Twitter, and if people like it, they can watch it. But for me, it's going to be like a nice little like personal video diary, little vlog about my reactions to some of these games, some stuff in the off season, weird takes that I have, and yeah, I'm excited about it. So, um, anyway, that's the playoffs. We have Game 6 tomorrow, Pistons Cavs. Roller coaster of a series. The Pistons have blown a lead in every game of the series, and really have not felt like they played that great, even in the ones that they won. So I'm not really surprised to see it's gotten to this point. It's really disappointing, obviously, when you get this close to a conference finals and then the wheels start falling off. Obviously, that really stings. But I'm still not done with the Pistons yet, and I don't think they're dead yet. We watched this in the last round. They were down in an even worse spot with the Magic, and they came back. It is the first of four. And something that I've noticed about this team all year, I'm going to get into some psychoanalysis. I'm going to do some Bill Simmons type podcasting on this because it's just for me. And again, I like to be a fan about this stuff. I don't want to always have to be analytical about the Pistons. I actually prefer to not have to be analytical about the Pistons because it is kind of a safe space for me to just kind of like be an idiot sometimes. And I enjoy being an idiot about the Pistons because I can't always do that with other teams that I cover and follow. I feel like the Pistons like to be in these positions in a weird way. They kind of get that wounded animal syndrome in them where they get a little dangerous when they're backed into a corner. And I've noticed it this year that whenever they would go on these win streaks, which there were many, that they would kind of get the vibe that they were feeling themselves a little too much. They get a little casual. They jog up and down the court, sloppy turnovers. They kind of maybe reading a bit too much of their own press. And I think we've seen that a little bit in the playoffs. The Magic series, they didn't really start playing like we saw them all year until they were down. And I'm interested to see how they respond to the Cavs. Down 3-2. It feels like everyone's kind of writing them off now. Horrible Game 5 loss. But they still have, in my opinion, the best player on the court in the series, and that means a lot in the playoffs. I think that they can respond. I mean, the big story, obviously, is Duran and his just historic downfall. I saw today that he had the second biggest drop in production for an all-star player from regular season to the playoffs since Will Chamberlain, and that was freaking a 50 points per game to a 35 points per game drop, where Darren's is 20 to 10. Not really comparable in that way, but we're like watching a historic meltdown by him, and some of it is definitely what the teams are doing. Orlando has been doing did some interesting things for him and how they were switching the pick and roll to disrupt him. The Cavs are doing some interesting things, but it also looks like his confidence is shaken. Again, I'm going to do some psychoanalysis. He's just making really stupid mistakes that he didn't really make during the regular season, at least in offense. Just bad drops, bad passes, trying to force it way too much. The bad 18-footer the other day. And the thing with Duren, it's been no secret, if anyone has followed me on Twitter these last few years, I've been a pretty big Duren critic. He is an amazing player that has some of the most amazing athletic abilities in the world. He's built like a brick shithouse. He's fast. He's strong. He could be the most dominant center in the NBA. That's not even a stretch to say that. People are voting him second team All NBA this year for a reason. He has so much potential. The problem with Duren is his defense has never been great, even though he kind of gets a reputation for being, I think, better than he actually is quite often. He's a drop center. He often takes bad angles on defending the pick and roll. His awareness of spatial awareness is not the best. I think sometimes he can be a little bit lazy on his contests. I mean, that's easy for me to say as someone that's not playing pro basketball, but as a casual observer, that's what it seems like at times. And then it's really cast into contrast when you get a Beef Stew or a Paul Reed that comes in and plays like their hair's on fire, and that's just never really what we see out of Duren. So that's been tough. I mean, it does make you wonder if he's had something going on. I mean, there's been plenty of rumors about Isaiah Stewart and that he's denied, but Duren is just as much in question to me. But yeah, really, for him to overcome some of those defensive limitations that I still see quite a bit over the course of the regular season, even, and definitely in the playoffs, he needs to be that all-NBA level offensive producer. He needs to be the 20 and 10 guy to be able to counter that. Obviously, rebounding counts as defense. So if he's going to be rebounding like a maniac like he was in the regular season, that changes the calculus on how I'm going to evaluate his defense. That's also fallen off a cliff. So it's been really tough to see him do that, especially because I do think outside of one bad game, you're getting like a breakout series for Ausar Thompson. I breakout is a little bit of a stretch because I think he's been doing this all year, but honestly, what I've kind of learned about listening to other people in the media throughout this playoff run is I think a lot of analysts were capping on how much they were actually watching the Pistons, because I think a lot of people seem surprised that Ausar Thompson plays like this, and he's just been doing it all year. He's the second best defender in the NBA right now. I mean, that's at least top three if you want to throw Gobert into the mix there, but I'll give Wemby the credit that he's been the best, but then after that, Ausar is on the short list for sure. The way that he just blows up every single offensive possession for the other team, they literally you can't screen him, and every offensive possession in the NBA in 2026 basically starts with some level of screen for the ball handler, and you can't screen Ausar, so you can't get into your offense. All of a sudden, you've been trying to screen him back and forth for 15 seconds, and then you have 9 seconds left on the clock, and you end up just having to hoist something. He blocks it. It's a cheat code, and it's something that's extremely valuable for the Pistons specifically because, as we've seen, I'll get into this, their half-court offense obviously is not that good. They've been fueled by their transition offense all year. But aside from transition, there's a benefit from just being able to operate after a stop, even if you're not in transition on a fast break as we normally think about it. Just being able to go against a defense that isn't set yet and they aren't entrenched down there and ready to give Cade Cunningham hell, that's extremely valuable, and that makes your offense better. And when the Pistons are at their best, they have Asar Thompson or Ron Holland or sometimes Isaiah Stewart in there just wrecking teams' possessions and making sure that the ball doesn't stop so the other team can't get set. So that is where the Pistons have had their success all year. Obviously, Cade Cunningham just exploding as a near MVP level player is going to do a lot for you. But, Cade has been at that level for a couple of years now, and the Pistons were not that level. Things really turned around for the Pistons very clearly last year when Asar Thompson came back from the blood clots. And that there was only like a 4-game stretch or so that we had some overlap with Ivy and Asar, and it felt like the skies were opening up. They just started killing everybody and basically looked unbeatable with him in the starting lineup. And it's been like a rocky road with Asar, and he's a heavily scrutinized player for his offense. It's been a struggle to get to a point where he can actually get reliable minutes, 30 plus minutes a game. His own coach, routinely would opt to play guys like Duncan Robinson, Karis LeVert, Danis Jenkins over him at the end of games, capping his minutes at 22, 23, 24 minutes per, ceiling in a lot of games because of that. And that's been one of my biggest critiques of JB Bickerstaff is his resistance to embracing Asar Thompson, who I think is pretty clearly, I've always felt this way. I felt this way for like a year and a half, that Asar is the second best player on the team. And, he's definitely not treated him like that. He's treated Jalen Duren like he's the second best player on the team. And I think, most people would probably say that too. He's going to get a lot of All-NBA votes. He'll probably make the team or come pretty darn close. But I think in this playoffs, we've seen that Asar is clearly the second best player. Kind of bearing the lead because, you have to talk about Cade as well in the series. Just putting on another Herculean effort. I mean, you see this guy just dragging his body through the mud. I mean, the Cavs have this luxury of having Harden and Donovan Mitchell, two All-NBA caliber players that can kind of take one night off and let the other one take over. I mean, they're obviously doing that. They look one or the other looks gassed, and the other one kind of takes over. It's just Cade every single possession for the Pistons, getting pressured full court. Still feel like the Pistons don't quite let people bring the ball up for him enough. I would like to see even more of that, especially if Danis is on the court. Let's let him bring it up. Asar is a little bit dicier. We saw a bad turnover a couple games ago with him trying to do that. But definitely if Danis is on the court, you should be bringing it up. One more thing on Asar. That game 5, it's such a shame that it's going to go down as a loss because he had one of the best performances I've ever seen. It felt like he had 30 blocks, deflection, steals. He was all over the place. His numbers in terms of Harden and Mitchell scoring on him in this, I saw are just ridiculous. They can't do anything on him. Just blows up everything. And what was frustrating in Game 5, so I mentioned that JB has a tendency to bench Asar at the end of games. And, I'm not an idiot. I understand why that happens. You want shooting on the court, spacing for Cade. That's, we've all seen the pictures of 4 guys swarming Cade, and we know that the Cavs and other teams are playing off of Asar so that they could go double team Cade and make his life even harder. And there is something I think Asar, he can't shoot. We know that. Right now he can't shoot. I don't think he's as bad of an offensive player as people say. I think he has a lot of skills on offense, and I think not being able to unlock that currently has been an indictment on the coaching staff. And it's easy for me to say, I'm not an NBA coach, um, but he's a great passer. He has great instincts. He sets good screens. He has good hands. He's super athletic. There's more things that the Pistons, I feel, could be doing to utilize him rather than just having him stand in the corner and not get guarded, that they're not doing right now. I even think like use him as a pick and roll ball handler. I mean, we've seen a lot of evidence that he should be used as a screener more, but like maybe run a pick and roll for him. Maybe have Cade be a screener and run the pick and roll with Asar. Like I think there's things you could be doing. But obviously this also goes back to Duren because the theory of having Cade, Duren, and Asar playing together with the spacing limitations is that you run the Cade and Duren pick and roll, and then Duren on the short roll is going to dump it off to Asar in the dunker spot and get an easy play. Like that's supposed to be like an unguardable action. The problem is Duren is literally like dropping the ball or running into the defender or trying to force a bad shot. It's been a mess. But you can invert that. You can do that both ways. I think that that's still extremely valuable. That should be like an unguardable play in the NBA. But Duren has not been playing up to his standard, and it's made things really difficult. I think it's making Asar look worse. And then with that, what really bugged me in Game 5... Sorry, I'm taking my nightly vitamins. What really bugged me in Game 5, obviously, JB likes to do this thing where he'll like use some timeouts to switch offense and defense at the end of games in crunch time. And I think he's like overthinking it. Like on one hand, when you have Duncan Robinson available, like if you need a three, I get it. Like call a timeout. If you take out Asar for Duncan for one possession, I understand the thinking there, but too many times in that situation, they get caught where they still need to have a stop and they can't get a break in play and they can't get Asar back in for a play or two, and then they just immediately get cooked and then end up even further behind. And that happened yesterday when he subbed up. He kept subbing out Asar for Karis LeVert. For freaking Karis LeVert, you're subbing out the second best guy on your team for Karis LeVert, who I know had one good game, but like, give me a break. It's LeVert. Like, he's not giving you that much more than Asar. I mean, I guess the argument would be that you have to actually guard him on the perimeter where you can leave Asar off, but they did it. They put LeVert in and it didn't work. He bricked a three. He took a really bad end of shot clock shot. That was just horrible. And at that point in the game, to be honest, they weren't even really doubling Cade as much. They were single covering him because he looked so gassed. And I think having someone who could inject some energy in the offense like Asar might have worked. I mean, it's easier to say that in hindsight, but frustrating to watch JB just constantly pull Asar. And I think that that's going to change. I mean, all indications are that the Pistons front office knows the value of Asar, and I just can't imagine if they're going to back out the piggy bank for him. They're going to back up the Brinks truck, that JB is going to get away with just pulling him off the floor like that moving forward. I would imagine that he got chewed out pretty hard, even taking him out in Game 1. He did that during the Magic series as well, where there was in the first couple games, like Asar did not play the full game. He definitely got pulled, and if I was Trajan, I'd be pissed seeing that because you have this amazing talent that the coach keeps taking off the floor for some reason and kind of buying into some of these narratives about spacing. Anyway, so I would just like to see them ride Asar and just see what he can do, give him that opportunity. I mean, the other thing too is JB says a lot of the right things in his press conferences, especially when it's related to Duren and why he continues to ride with Duren. Giving the young players confidence. Also, my understanding is that I thought this playoff run was the expectation was not a championship. The expectation was fact finding and figuring out what you had on your hands, and just having Asar on such a tight leash. It can't be helping his confidence to be pulled like that. And I would like to see them let him ride it out at the end of games and like figure out the offense, like figure out how you can be effective in the playoffs in crunch time on offense and not be a negative. Like he's a really smart player and he does have a lot of offensive talents. Like he's not a nothing on offense. Like if you think that, you're wrong. Like he's one of the best passers on the team. He can do a lot. He just can't shoot. And you know what? A lot of other players in the Pistons can't shoot either. Look at the numbers. I mean, they're not exactly Steph Curry out there right now. So yeah, that kind of was frustrating to watch LeVert get a couple of those possessions and it ended up backfiring and it didn't work anyway. I mean, did Karis LeVert miss that three better than Asar Thompson would miss that three? I guess it was still a miss. So a couple other like small notes from that game. You know, again, if you've ever followed me or seen my tweets, you know that I'm a founding member of Marcus Sasser FC. So it was cool to see him get some minutes because Herter clearly didn't look right, and JB made a quick adjustment, which I respected that sub. That was nice, brave thinking by JB to put Herter in, who's been dealing with the adductor strain, see they didn't have it, and just immediately go to Sasser and trust a young player that has not played it really at all in the playoffs. I thought Sasser did okay. All things considered, the Cavs are definitely not the best matchup for him. But he was like a +9 in that game. I do think he can cover Sam Merrill pretty well because he's actually fast enough to chase him around all those screens, even though Sasser's definitely not known as like an off-ball defender. But he can keep up with Merrill as he keeps navigating throughout the court. And that's not something you can say for, you know, Duncan Robinson can't do that. LeVert can't do that. Like, he's too fast for them. So Sasser, at least, I think he had a good ball denial that led to a turnover. The one thing about him, you know, and this is a lot of time for Sasser, I know barely ever plays, which, you know, I'd love to see him actually get an opportunity someday, but he just didn't look aggressive with the shot at all. If he's out there, like, he needs to be shooting. That's his NBA skill, is his shooting. And he didn't really put up any shots. So if he's going to be in there, he's got to shoot. I get it. Against like psychoanalysis, like he probably didn't expect to play. They were going to roll with Herter. He hasn't played all playoffs. We've seen what not having a lot of playoff experience can do for all NBA caliber players like Duran. Like Sasser's a guy who's couldn't even get minutes in the regular season. Like they've never played him this year. This is throwing him right into the fire. So yeah, but would have just liked to at least see him get a couple more threes up because he's statistically the best shooter by percentage on the team. I know that's not everything. He's not super high volume, but he can shoot. Last thing, you know, there's a lot of talk about the officiating in that game. You know, then there's like the Pistons definitely have been complaining. The fans been complaining, and then you get like a backlash to the backlash where people are like, oh, you know, you're trying to blame the officiating. Like that's like loser mentality to blame the officiating for a loss. I mean, it's a pretty ridiculous free throw disparity. Like I think it's kind of fair to talk about. The Cavs have shot like 35 more free throws this series than the Pistons, and yeah, the Pistons do foul a lot and put people on the line a lot, but they also get to the line a lot because they're physical on both sides. So, I mean, it feels when you watch it, I think you feel the disparity. The Cavs are getting a lot of calls, especially after they complained. They're also flipping and flopping around. It's frustrating, but same breath. Like I do understand the backlash. Like it does get a little bit same old Lions energy. You know, that was always the big thing with the Lions is complaining about the call against the Cowboys in the playoffs. Like, you know, there's pass interference. Like that's why they lost. And yeah, like everyone is always like, you just can't leave the game in the hands of the refs. And that's the cool, calm, and collected take, and I get that, and I mostly agree with it, but I also think it's fair to be complaining about it a little bit because it's way out of whack. But anyway, couple of mock trades that I wanted to throw out that I thought were interesting. The first one I tossed on Twitter today, and I got a pretty funny mixed reaction. I'm not saying I'm advocating for this at all, but I'm just throwing it out there. Two players who are in need of a new deal. Jalen Duren, coming off a pretty nasty playoff run that, I mean, you had fans in Little Caesars Arena chanting for B-Ball Paul when Duren was in the game. Like, I actually think JB would have considered putting Duren back in the game, but I think there might have actually been a riot if he did. Like, fans did not want to see more Duren last night, and it's crazy to see someone's position on a team change this much, and it'll be really interesting to see if the Pistons do extend him, what number he gets from them. You probably think that there's something pre-negotiated somewhat. Like, I don't know if they were going into the playoffs talking to his team of like, yeah, if you do well, like, you're going to get close to the max, and if you don't, we're going to have to renegotiate. Like, I don't think anyone anticipated it was going to be this stark of a contrast. So it would be really interesting to see if they do go back to the drawing board and then Trajan's able to go to the agent and be like, hey man, like, this guy really sucked and we believe in him, but like, we can't pay him that. We can't give him that many dollars. We can't give him that many years, whatever the case may be. Anyway, I think it's fair for fans to at least think about other options of what you might do with him. Throwing out one idea. Again, I don't know if this is what I would do, but throwing it out into the world, Jalen Duren for Austin Reeves. They both had a bad playoffs. Reeves was hurt. Duren, whatever is happening to him. Reeves definitely provides a lot of what the Pistons need in terms of a secondary creator, shooter. I mean, this guy, there was a stretch in the season he was like fourth in MVP voting. I think people forget that because he was injured for so long, but he's a legit offensive weapon. He sucks on defense, and that's not usually the players that I personally gravitate towards. But he's an amazing offensive player when he's healthy, and he would take a ton of pressure off Cade. They could stagger lineups. He could take the ball up for Cade sometimes. He would obviously be an upgrade over like Duncan Robinson in that lineup. The Lakers, I think, would be interested in that deal. One, I mean, the reason the player options that he's going to have a lot of control over where he goes next, so you'd have to buy into coming to Detroit. That's kind of a different conversation. This is more of a fan fiction type of thing. But the Lakers have made no secret that they want a rim runner with Luka. And Duren can do that. Duren would actually be pretty awesome with Luka. And Duren, for his defensive inefficiencies, like, he would still be a massive upgrade over what they've been doing over there. Lakers are one of the worst defensive teams in the league. Just having him as a big body and drop there to clean up everyone that runs by Luka easily would help, I think. And his rebounding would also help. Luka would make his life really easy on offense. So yeah, I think it's interesting. At least I don't know if I would do that exactly, but I think that's something that would not be like totally unfeasible. Another one is not related. I'm doing Pistons and other stuff, so this is not related to the Pistons. But I've had this idea for a couple weeks, and I think it makes a ton of sense, so I'm throwing it out. Jalen Suggs for De'Aaron Fox. When the Spurs signed Fox to that max extension, I was like, what are you guys doing? And then they got Dylan Harper, and then it was like, really, what are you doing? Like, this guy's, I'm not really like a draft for fit guy. Like, I do think just take the best player available because the NBA is a talent league. But you got Castle and Harper who are just like absolute beasts at guard, and then you have De'Aaron Fox for some reason too, who was already not the player he was with Sacramento, I think, and you just have a glut of guards now for some reason. It just doesn't make any sense. Suggs is a guard too, but he's also not a point guard. I think we found out he's also not a shooting guard. He's just kind of like I kind of put him in like the Josh Hart category, where he's just like a menace, crazy guy who runs around and can do like a lot of different things at the guard position. But I actually think the Spurs could make use of someone like that. It would open up time and ball handling opportunities for Harper. They could just use Suggs as like a super six man. I mean, it's a lot of money to pay him for that, but it's a lot of money to pay for De'Aaron Fox right now too. So yeah, the money makes sense. They're both way overpaid, so they're just kind of like, swapping deck chairs in the Titanic at that point. I think it makes sense. The Magic desperately need a real point guard. I think a lot of teams in the NBA. This is another bone that I have to pick, is I don't remember a time. I'm not an NBA historian by any means, but I personally don't think I can name a time in the NBA's history where there's this many teams that are rolling without a true point guard. And that bugs me because I really respect the point guard position and the nuances that go into that. The Hawks, the Trailblazers. I mean, so many of these teams just have CJ McCollum, I don't consider him a point guard. They just have like these ball handlers that are thrust in this position. I don't think the Cavs have like a real point guard. I don't consider James Harden and Donovan Mitchell point guards. I think they're both shooting guards who can handle the ball. Anyway, I like that trade. So, last thing I'm going to do on my Pistons and other stuff podcast from a leftist perspective is talk about my Letterboxd last four. 4 movies I watched. I watched these in the past week or so. First one, Pale Rider, Clint Eastwood movie from the 80s, very 80s movie. Really enjoyed this movie. A really clever inverse on another Clint Eastwood movie, High Plains Drifter. Has a lot in common of that movie, but it's also kind of flipped on its head. To get kind of cute and glib with it, I would say High Plains Drifter is a movie where Clint Eastwood is this unnamed hero who was sent to punish a town. And this one, he's sent to save them. And it's a little bit more, it's like the heaven and hell dichotomy there. And both movies, though, High Plains Drifter and Pale Rider, Clint Eastwood directed both of them. They have some of the most beautiful shots that I've ever seen in Westerns. I mean, that's a high bar to clear, but it's like really stunning. He has a great eye, especially with his Westerns. Just a nice, badass, beautiful looking Western. Next one that I watched, Arthur. Never seen that. I felt that was an extremely silly movie, which I was surprised by. I mean, I knew it was going to be a little bit silly, but it was like sillier than I thought because I knew that it had been nominated for a couple of Oscars, so I thought it would have some. I liked it a lot. Like, I gave it 4 stars, but I thought that it would have a little bit more pathos, I guess, a little bit more feeling to it. I mean, this character learns nothing basically in the movie. I mean, he ends up just still rich, but he just gets the girl anyway at the end. So very fun. It was just different than what I was expecting, but I still enjoyed it. Obviously, the music is sensational. One of the best theme songs I've ever heard. Some great performances. Liza Minnelli. Is it Walter Hobson? I probably just butchered that name, but the old guy that did a lot of Shakespeare movies or plays, whatever. He was great as the butler. That was great. I liked Arthur, but just different than I was expecting. Playtime, French movie. So I am a sucker for slow cinema, is the term. Goodbye Dragon Inn is it's on my famous top 100 letterboxed movies. Um, I do think that slow cinema is when the director just like lets the camera kind of sit there for a while and capture everything that's happening in that scene. And I just think it's the most brilliant type of filmmaking and like the highest form of art in filmmaking. Like it blows my mind how they're able to subtly tell these stories and introduce these characters and follow these plot lines and still have very clearly like plot and narrative structure, but in this very non-conventional way. Um, as an aside, I think um, the I believe it was in the rehearsal where he did like, or maybe it was a Nathan For You episode where he like had a bar, like all this like reenact like their night over and over again, like the same bar, like they all said the same things. Like that was kind of like riffing on slow cinema, where it's like the art of like just watching the existence there. But I really like slow cinema, and I like that movie. A lot of the bits were very subtle but very clever in the first half, and then by the end, when everything kind of like culminates in the climax, when they're all at the restaurant together and it's like beautiful jazz and they're dancing, it's like very silly movie also, but like very beautiful. I also like that it makes fun of American tourists in Paris, which is a nice cliche to make fun of. Last one, I watched Cool Hand Luke. I also really like this movie. I thought I was gonna like it even a little bit more, but I did really like it. Um, More depressing than I thought it would be. That's I think maybe it's not that I didn't like it, but I thought it was gonna be a little bit more like uplifting. I mean, he does persevere through so much, but God, he gets the shit kicked out of him the whole movie, which is a little bit relatable, but also pretty tragic end that I won't completely spoil. Although the movie is 60 years old, so go watch it. But my biggest takeaway from that movie is why did Dragline talk like that? Um, Literally talks like Alec Baldwin in the episode where he's doing the impression of Tracy's parents, which I'm not going to do that impression on here because it's racist. And look at the title, leftist perspective. Can't do that. Um, yeah, couple last little things that I'm gonna sign off here. Video game corner. I bought Crimson Desert a couple weeks ago. I do like open world RPGs. I felt like that game is just like there's too much going on and also not enough. Like too much. There's just like too many mechanics, too many ideas stuffed into it, but also like zero story, zero character. There's like nothing really to latch onto. I also don't really like the leveling system. It's like way too convoluted. You got too many systems that are all disparate and conflicting and hard for me to get invested in. Very pretty game. Very cool in that way. Definitely something that I'll probably revisit and try to get through a little bit more. I can see why people do really like it as like this huge, beautiful sandbox thing to play in. That is cool, but it does feel a little not polished enough. Too many different conflicting ideas. It's cool that they keep updating it though, so I might give it some time and go back to it later and see how it's updated. I did randomly switch back to Assassin's Creed Shadows, which had played like 5 minutes of 6 months ago and dropped. I love that game. That's actually awesome. Very video gamey. I haven't played an Assassin's Creed game since Odyssey, which I also liked a lot, just because it's pretty stupid and fun, and I enjoy that. Yeah, that's it. Thank you. Hope you had fun.